The United Nations has an entire department dedicated to forwarding anti-Israel propaganda and terrorism. The United Nations Relief and Works Agency was founded in December 1949 with the purpose of dealing with refugees from the 1948 Israeli War of Independence. Arab refugees, that is. The 800,000 Jews expelled from Arab and Muslim lands in the same time period, those people were simply taken in by Israel. The Arab nations, of course, took in none of the Palestinian refugees. The UNRWA is, in fact, the only agency at the UN dedicated to one specific population, and it has helped keep that population in refugee camps for 70 years. The UNRWA is almost entirely staffed by members of the Palestinian Arab community. It is, in fact, a globally sponsored welfare organization with 23,000 Palestinian Arab employees and just 100 UN professionals from elsewhere. It is not a UN organization. It is a make-work organization that works very, very closely with Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and the Palestinian Authority. The UNRWA has never condemned Hamas's agenda. It routinely hires members of Hamas and Islamic Jihad. One of the UNRWA's chief tasks is running dozens of Palestinian schools. The UNRWA, as you might predict, then helps indoctrinate Palestinian Arab school children in Jew hatred. According to a March report from United Nations Watch, the UNRWA has overseen the broad indoctrination of Palestinian youths into toxic and violent anti-Semitism. That report names 47 cases of incitement to violence by UNRWA staff, 133 UNRWA educators and staff who promote hate and violence on social media, and another 82 educators and staff involved in 30 UNRWA schools who create and distribute Jew-hating content to students. For example, one reading comprehension exercise for ninth graders at Al-Maghazi Middle School for boys in the Gaza Strip celebrates the burning of a Jewish bus as, quote, a barbecue party. Fifth graders at that same UN school were taught that martyrdom and jihad are, quote, the most important meanings of life. This sort of stuff is not uncommon by any stretch of the imagination in Palestinian schools run by the UNRWA, which is why Hamas's political leader, Ismail Haniyeh, is a UNRWA graduate. So is Abd al-Raziz Rantisi, the former Hamas chief. So is Ibrahim Makadama, the mastermind behind Hamas's military structure. UNRWA resources are also dedicated to helping terrorist groups more directly. UNRWA vehicles have been used to transport terrorists and weapons. That includes ambulances. UNRWA schools have been used by Hamas to store weapons. The UNRWA also helps promote Hamas front groups, including the Palestinian Return Center. The UNRWA has been used by Hamas to cover its tunnels. Last November, the UNRWA, in a rare admission, protested the, quote, man-made cavity on the grounds of a UNRWA school. That's the euphemism that they use. Man-made cavity, not terror tunnel. They called it a serious violation of the agency's neutrality. The statement, of course, made no mention of Hamas. In 2021, Hamas actually prevented entry to an investigative team from the UN to a shaft built under a UNRWA school. The whole purpose of this is so that if Israel tries to strike a terror tunnel, it has to hit a school. For all these reasons, the Trump administration cut off contributions from the United States to the UNRWA. Then President Biden, in all of his vast wisdom, restored hundreds of millions of dollars in funding, much of which undoubtedly went directly to Hamas. Over the course of the last couple of years, the administration gave the UNRWA some $700 million of your taxpayer money. This is why back in February, Representative Chip Roy of Texas called for the defunding of the UNRWA, noting, quote, UNRWA's lengthy and detailed history of promoting anti-Semitism, violence, and terrorism through educational materials and its continued ties to Hamas should completely disqualify this corrupt entity from receiving any U.S. taxpayer funding. It didn't happen. And so it shouldn't be surprising that after the October 7th massacre, many employees of the UNRWA went online to celebrate the mass Jew murder. So, for example, Principal Iman Hassan, who glorified Hamas's murder of babies as, quote, repaying injustices, and liked her friend's burn, burn, burn. The burn, 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 of course, was directed at civilians. Or UNRWA teacher Mohammed Adwan, who defended the Hamas massacre, quote, what we do is resistance, regaining our rights, and then eulogized terrorists. Or, for example, UNRWA school counselor Niveen Afana. On the same day of the massacre, she prayed for the murderers on Facebook, quote, oh Allah, have mercy on the martyrs, steadfast our mujahideen, grant them victory over the unbelievers and a good ending. How about UNRWA teacher Osama Ahmad? On Sunday morning, as Hamas terrorists invaded Israeli towns, according to Hillel Noor, he celebrated, Allah is the greatest above imagination. How about UNRWA pediatrician Bashir Khamis Ghanam? Right after the massacre, he shared a post praising the murderers as, quote, martyrs of the Islamic and Arab nation who were martyred in defending their homeland and nation. And none of this is a surprise. This is what the UN is all about. It is not an exception. It is not a few bad apples. The UN has been run as an anti-Semitic organization from basically a few years after its inception until right now.